Welcome to the Bournecast, a special rewatch miniseries from Least Important Things in which we assess and uncover the legacy of the Bourne franchise. With me, as always, is my friend and asset, Mike Wynn. Welcome, Mike. How are you, my friend?
Doing great.
Mike, today we have a very special guest, a prestigious guest, Dr. Logan Matthews. Welcome, Logan, to the podcast. You're not familiar to Least Important Things, but this is the first time on the Bournecast and doing a rewatch series. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I don't get called doctor very often anymore, so.
Well, we have to class it up. Mike is a very intelligent person, but I would claim myself not to be. So we're just adding some intellectual elevation to this episode for our finale of the original trilogy of Bourne with the Bourne Ultimatum. It's very exciting. Logan, what's your background with this franchise, with this series?
I love this series. I remember watching it, as a teenager. I don't know if I saw the first one in theaters. I definitely feel like I saw the second and third one in theaters. Definitely had conversations with buddies in high school about it in terms of who would be the best spy, or who would win in the sort of 1v1 battles of these characters. I had buddies who were very convinced that Bob Lee Swagger from the Shooter movie could take out Jason Bourne, and I was like, there's zero chance of that. But we'll save that for another day.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I think I hit a renaissance with it when they announced the fifth one. So I got very excited about that. Started reading, I brought props. Started reading my set of the Robert Ludlum novels.
Oh, look at that. Gorgeous.
Don't remember very much about them, but I heard you were rereading them, Luke, or reading them for the first time.
Yes,
So
I'm reading
that's
for the
going
first time. Yeah, I read the first one, and it's very different than intentionally, but that we found out from the backstory. There's stuff actually in this third movie that actually tie a little bit more to the first book than the first two movies. But
yeah. They're good reads. I remember enjoying them a lot. And then I got psyched, and I got my collection of the Blu-rays, and all 5 at once. So there you go. But
ooh, nice.
yeah. And then I'm very curious to be listening to your future episodes about the fourth and fifth movies, because I want to hear your thoughts, because I definitely feel like it drops. But for the longest time, the Bourne series would have been my answer for favorite movies. So that's my background.
We have a true fan here, Logan. As you may have listened to the first 2 episodes, Mike is has a more passive attitude to this franchise, and it's not, it's not his personality. It's not because he's an Arsenal fan. It's more about when he was shown at an age of life. I think with a lot of these franchises, you need to see them at a certain age, and Mike didn't really see them maybe earlier on in his filmography journey that I think adds the passion, but. Mike, I think you like this movie. If your Letterboxd tease was in
I think this is my favorite in like the saga of like all this long episodic thing. This may be my favorite iteration of it. About 25 minutes into the movie, I was kind of worried. I kind of thought this could go wrong, but by the time half point of the movie came, I was like, all right, definitely feeling a lot better about this. Still not sure how the second half of this movie is going to go. But then by the time the final whistle was blown, I was really pleased with the result.
Okay.
And, I'm sorry. Are we talking about Bourne Ultimatum, or are we talking about the North London Derby? Because North London is red.
For context, listeners, viewers, we are recording the day of the North London Derby, which, if you don't know, it is Tottenham Hotspur versus Arsenal in the Premier League. Logan and I are Tottenham supporters. If you've listened to our soccer episode on Least Important Things, you'll know that. Mike is an Arsenal fan, to much chagrin of my relationship with him, and we're still recording, which I think shows a truer, deeper connection as all being Michigan State graduates to overcome the bitterness of the rivalry.
Ultimatum was my favorite of the 3.
And you saw this one in the theaters, correct?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters. It was the first movie I saw. I had no context to it. I do remember bits of it, but all I mostly remember was feeling
shaky
nauseous.
Cam.
Yes.
The shaky cam. Yeah.
I sat in the third row.
Huge mistake. Huge mistake. I saw this one as well in theaters, and it was a special summer, which I'll get into a little bit later. All right, we're going to move on to Mike's nap check-in. This is a segment of the show where we check in with Mike to see at one point did he fall asleep while watching this movie. Mike, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I was I think I fell asleep like in the last 2 minutes, like
More in the
right before
wrap
the
up.
credits. Yeah,
Okay.
right before the
That's
credits.
impressive. Because I was thinking this is a movie that would be really tough to fall asleep in, even for Mike.
Yeah.
This would be tough.
It really has to do with at what point do I go, does my body angle go below 45 degrees? That's really what it comes down
That's the
to.
key. But you were in it there till the end. It was like the release of the ending of the movie.
Right.
It just kind of really sunk you into that couch. It's a comfy couch. I've been on that couch. It really does suck you in a good way, in all the best
Yeah.
ways.
So is like Bourne is thinking in the river and you're like, all right, now time for me to pass out. Is that kind of what happened? Or
I was just kind of like dozing off at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just relaxed.
Yeah.
You're born finally. He finally found the truth, his background. He
In fact,
realized.
I don't, when you say sinking in the river, I'm not even really sure when that was, to be honest.
Well, we'll get to it. I'm still impressed. I think out of all of our series where Mike is napping, this one is the one that has combated your nap apathy to movies. I feel like because they're such tight movies and action packed, which is
No,
great.
I think it has more to do with I've seen all the other movies that we've done before. I haven't seen these.
All right, we're moving on to the back of the VHS description or the DVD description. I actually have the physical DVD, so I'm going to read the back of it for viewers, listeners who maybe haven't seen this movie. If you haven't, you can pause and watch it right now, but here's a little bit of description to predicate our conversation. Here we go. Highly trained assassin Jason Bourne is on the hunt for agents who stole his memory and true identity. With a new generation of skilled CIA operatives, tracking his every move, Bourne is in a non-stop race around the globe as he finally learns the truth behind his mysterious past. Loaded with incredible fight and chase sequences, it's an exhilarating movie with mind-blowing action that you can't afford to miss. The Bourne Ultimatum. Matt Damon is Jason Bourne. All right, ready for some background stuff on this movie. The Bourne Ultimatum was released on August 3rd, 2007. That weekend, you could have seen The Simpsons movie, Hairspray, Harry Potter in the Order of the Phoenix, and Hot Rod. It was shot at Pinewood Studios in the UK, also on location in Madrid, Tangier, London, of course, Berlin, Paris, and New York City. A globetrotting film. It is the most lucrative of the installments to dates that we've covered, with a budget of just over 110 million, and then it made domestically 227 million, and then worldwide 442 million. Supremacy was a little bit lower than that, and then of course Identity was, but this is which is pretty typical of third installments. The biggest budget makes the most money. We really have almost the complete returning cast and crew. Paul Greengrass returns. Tony Gilroy returns to write it. John Powell for the music, cinematography, Oliver Wood, editing, Christopher Roos, the stunt fighting coordinator, Dan Bradley and Gary Powell, executive producer, Frank Marshall, and then the cast. Of course, Matt Damon, Jason Bourne, Julia Stiles, Nikki Parsons, David Stryharian as Noah Vosen, Scott Glenn as Ezra Kramer, Paddy Constantine as Simon Ross. He's most notably in Hot Fuzz and the new House of Dragons series. Edgar Ramirez as Paz. Albert Finney, the great Albert Finney as Dr. Albert Hirsch. Joan Allen returns as Pam Leading. Tom Gallup as Tom Cronin. And Daniel Bruhl as Martin Kreutz. So this is 2 years before his big break in Inglourious Basterds. So that's a fun Easter egg kind of character actor that is early on in his career. All right, ready for some facts that you can fact check? I'm not going to do the work for you. This is the only Bourne film to win Academy Awards. It won 3. And I'm pretty sure the categories that it won are non-existent anymore, where they had sound editing and sound mixing. Those categories, I believe, don't exist anymore.
I'm pretty sure they still exist.
I think they took them out, Mike. You're an Oscar expert on the show, so do some research while I continue to talk. But
Okay, I'll fact check them. I'll
fact check that one.
myself,
Fact check yourself. That's what I told you. In the Tangier chase, Nikki, played by Julia Stiles, of course, and Dash, played by Joey Ansa, are seen pushing past the citizens. These are not extras. Tangier was too crowded, and the flow of people was hard to control. Hence, the two are genuinely pushing through the crowd. Same thing in Waterloo. The Waterloo station, there was a lot of pedestrians, so they really couldn't necessarily do all extras. So again, this is classic Bourne, where they're filming in cities, in environments. There's real people. I tried to look to see if I could see anybody looking into camera. I couldn't. I saw one person with a phone, but I didn't see like fully direct into camera. I don't know if you guys saw anything like that in those two scenes. I was looking for it, but the good thing about this movie is the cutting is so fast that it's not, you can't really tell. There's not anything obvious.
I wonder how they pulled off the sniper shot then. You know, like if it's so busy, I mean, obviously they didn't really snipe someone, but you know, how do you like pull that off in the middle of a busy
I
station?
assume because that was done when you see him killed, it's through the sky,
The scope,
the
yeah,
scope,
yeah.
and I'm assuming that was done separately, or they might have done that at Pinewood on a set. That's a good question. It's truly remarkable. I got to watch a little bit of the behind the scenes with the DVD, so buy the physical media, as Logan has mentioned as well, because you get to see a lot of cool behind the scenes and seeing. It's just a different era of filmmaking where they were doing these things on site, and it's truly incredible. During the filming of the London scenes, this is where this movie is special to me. In the summer of 2007 is special to me. During the filming of the London scenes, Matt Damon also shot a scene for the movie Ocean's 13. It's the scene where they cut to Damon, aka Linus, in Ocean's 13, and he's walking down the street talking about the casino security. And it actually is shot like Bourne. It looks like a Bourne scene. So go and watch Ocean's 13 and you'll see it. It's maybe a 10-second clip. He's talking to Danny about the securities not working for the casino they're trying to get into, but they shot it there while in London. So that's a great Easter egg and a special summer for me where I watched both of these movies in the theaters. I was huge fans of both of the franchises, and it was just a special summer at the theater for a young special Luke having it blast. But I never knew that until now.
What a legendary like weekend for movies, right? Like the Simpsons movie is obviously not aged great, but Hairspray, Harry Potter, and Hot Rod are all still like solid movies that you can watch. Hairspray obviously adapted from the Broadway play, but that Broadway play won a Tony for best musical when it came out. Like it was a good weekend at the movies.
It was a great summer at the movies. It's interesting going through this franchise. The early 2000s, what was happening in cinema was special. It was a different time, but that's more me doing with nostalgia. Here's a fun one. Again, with recastings, you always have to look at it with a critical eye. But Mark Ruffalo turned down the role of Simon Ross, the journalist, which is interesting. I think that's too big of an actor for that role.
I wonder if they would have expanded the part at all. Because yeah, I agree. He seems like he'd want more than just the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Again, this is before Avengers.
True.
But I think this is after 13 going on 30, more importantly. I think so. I mean, his most iconic role. I think that's, that was 2004. So, I mean, he's still a big star. I think if you expanded that, it would make sense because essentially the idea is that this British journalist working for The Guardian, the security correspondent, is investigating the killings of Marie and really looking at this CIA operation. So it would make sense if it's an American working for The Guardian based in the UK. I could see it. It would be fun to see Ruffalo in that kind of a role. I guess we kind of saw it in the Zodiac movie, but.
Well, what I kind of see here is like Ruffalo obviously regrets turning down this role to play the journalist because he picks up the role for Spotlight later on.
Yeah, I'm sure he regrets doing Spotlight over this. For Tangiers in that roof scene, this was in the behind the scenes. You can watch it. I know we live in a modern world where drones are kind of synonymous, but back then they necessarily didn't have the modern drones to shoot rooftop scenes or big landscape scenes. So in Tangiers, they actually had a rig where they had cables and a camera on on the cables. So they had to like create these structures to have it almost like a clothesline, and the camera would follow Damon and the stunt actors as they would jump on the rooftops. It's fascinating the amount of work that they had to do to make these things. And also what they needed to do is make sure that they weren't hitting actual power lines of people's houses. It's just absolutely crazy what the second unit did in this whole franchise, but also in this movie. It's crazy. And then in that same scene, the iconic jump into the window scene, they either did this on the day or while they were there shooting, they decided to give the stunt guy a camera. So they have the stunt guy that actually makes the jump. So when you see that shot, that is the stunt guy doing that. Is not Matt Damon because of safety, because he's jumping and leaping across a building into a window. But the camera follows him, and that's why it's such a great shot. They just gave a stunt guy a camera, and that's what you see. He's rigged up. So the camera guy is rigged up with like something that you would get when you're climbing at a rock climbing place, and he jumps and follows him. So it's, again, one of the many examples of them going above and beyond to get the shots. It's really cool. So that's the facts you can fact check. I'm not going to do the work for you. Any update on that Oscar research, Mike?
Yeah, you're right. It's just it just happened like quite recently.
It did. It's too bad. Shout out to the sound engineers who should get more credit. I always think that the Oscars should just be there should be a technical Oscars where it's just all the technical awards and none of the acting or director. It's just all the technical folks.
So
their own
hold on,
ceremony.
Out of both sides of your mouth, because you're like, we need more credit given to these technical awards. So then you want to actually create an event that nobody will watch.
I will watch it.
Okay. The only reason those people get the time of day during that ceremony is because it's surrounded by all the celebrity Oscars.
All right, we'll do that in our Oscar breakdown episode, Mike. Let's save it for that. All right, on to overall thoughts. OTs, gentlemen. I've been talking a lot. Tell me your overall reactions to rewatching the Bourne Ultimatum. We'll start with our guest, Logan. What was your first reaction of rewatching this movie?
I think I was a bit surprised because I think it was my favorite of the three that we rewatched, and I wouldn't have. I mean, I love them all. So favorite among superlatives it's an incredible movie, incredible series. But I think it was like the most satisfying of the three. And I was watching it with my wife. We were talking about it, and it's like the first one is incredible because it's just there's all the discovery and the unknown, and the action's great. The second one was kind of like the sad one in a way. I mean, because it starts with Marie getting killed, and then he's working through all this, just effectively trauma of realizing what he's done. Still an intense, like amazing movie, but we left the one feeling kind of sad, and then this one was like it just all comes together for him. Like at the end, it's like we have everything's resolved, and it's super satisfying. And now knowing what's coming, I wish they'd stopped it here because it's just like him swimming away. We don't really know where he's going next. I was very happy. The middle section too. That scene in Tangier is just so intense. And it's quite long actually, like from when Desh starts his sort of approach on Daniels to then, him finally dying. It's just so intense. And then you see Bourne wrestling with the fact that he just killed another person, which he doesn't do. Like in the start, he's not killing the guys in Russia. In Madrid, he just knocks the two guys out. So he's like coming to grips with who he is, but also holding back. And then, but then wrestling with there's certain times where he still has to kill people. It's just, I was so satisfied at the end of this to see sort of the arcs come to completion. Also love the symmetry with the Nikki relationship in this versus Marie in the first one. Because there's moments of like, and I actually, watching it as a romantic teenager, I was like, I kind of hope Nikki and Bourne come together, because there's all these hints in the first one that they had something, and now it's like, I'm glad they didn't, right? Like it's the way that they wrapped that up, I think was quite nice. So anyway, love the movie. Really enjoyed rewatching it, and makes me want to keep going with the fourth one, even though I'm kind of sad to see how I'll respond.
I know it's so difficult because this is really the perfect trilogy conclusion. When I think about the great trilogies in cinema history, obviously this is an adaptation, but I just think it's wrapped up so tightly. They give us everything we want as far as like giving conclusion to the characters, but it's not. It's restraint in some ways. They don't have this. Nikki doesn't give this whole long spiel about how she's been in love with him since he was onboarding to his training or blah 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 blah. Like it's hinted at. It's you see it in her actions and subtly in her words, but it's not this dramatic like, oh, every year I was looking at your file and just longed that one day. It's not something like that. And we don't actually get all this stuff about Bourne's past. We don't see his parents. We don't get his pre-life. We don't get a flashback of him being in the military. It's very contained and disciplined and true to the entire franchise, which I think is so wonderful about it. Mike, what stands out about you about this movie? Because you really like it as a third movie compared to the other two.
Yeah, I just found it to be overwhelmingly entertaining. I don't really have like highlights for it. I was just really entertained by it. And I don't know, I struggled. I mean, Luke, you saw my Letterboxd review for it, which I have a thing on Letterboxd where I only do 1-word reviews for movies.
Yeah, what's your tag? Is it at Mike Wynn or Mike J Wynn?
I don't even know, but I have a Letterboxd. But my 1-word review for this movie was Motorola, and I just felt like I would if cell phone was technically 1 word, I probably would have done that. But I thought it was kind of a fun use of like technology, like and like I don't know, like I'm just overwhelmingly entertained by this movie in a way that the first two did not. Like I was frustrated with Supremacy. You and Jim talked about it like it was your favorite movies in this series, and I was really confused by that. And I think that actually gave me a bad low. I'll say it this way: I probably loved this movie because I had low expectations because of how much you guys loved Supremacy. I thought, well, if Ultimatum is worse than Supremacy based on what Luke and Jim are saying, then I shouldn't expect much. And then I went into Ultimatum and I was just really happy with it.
You can follow Mike on Letterboxd at Mike Wynn, by the way. Logan, get out. Are you on Letterboxd? We got to get you on.
I'm not on Letterboxd. You know, honestly, compared to you guys, I'm not as big of a movie guy. So I just
but it's okay. It's not about quantity. It's about quality.
Yeah, I mean, I would be content with just these and Lord of the Rings, to be frank. But is this a new development with Mike? I mean, because I thought he was an IMDb guy from the last episode.
Well, we've slowly converted him through peer pressure mainly, and that it's my primary social media platform. So I forced him, much like this podcast, I forced him to be on there so I could connect with him in small moments.
It's true. I did convert.
That's called coercion.
It's good to see you guys becoming even closer together.
I know.
Well, I want to talk about. Go ahead, Mike. Were you going to say something?
No, I was gonna accidentally reveal my rating for this movie. Which
don't do that. Don't do that. We want people to listen to the end. We've been doing this for a while, Mike. I do have to say we've been doing this for almost 4 or 5 years. So come on.
Same.
Semi-professionals. Come on, let's do this. Okay, I have some overall thoughts, as you can expect, loving this movie. First thing I have to say is we don't see this very often in films, and rewatching it, I was just blown away by, of course, it's Bourne, shooting on location, but specifically Tangier's just in London shooting on location at the station. It's just at the Waterloo station. And Logan, by the way, just for behind the scenes, we did send Logan to London in preparation for this episode shooting. So make sure you send in your invoices there, Logan. But did you feel an accuracy of capturing London, that raw, like being in a tube station?
Oh, absolutely. Well, being at White Hart Lane after at tube station after or was the Overground specifically, but after a Tottenham match, yeah, definitely felt that crowded. So I'll bill you for that game too.
build that. Yeah, you make sure
Yeah.
you invoice for that. But it
Yeah.
really captures that bustling nature of London, especially with public transportation in London, if you've ever been, which all three of it has been. When there's times where you're just waiting for someone to get on, and it is shoulder to shoulder, and they really capture that. And then shooting in New York, I can't think of outside. I think the John Wick series has shot a lot in New York, but I can't think of a big franchise blockbuster movie that shot that much in New York. Especially, they shot this in the winter in New York City. They shut down 7th Avenue. And this is a quote from Matt Damon. He said, "New York is not a place where people shoot car chases. The mayor's office was justifiably concerned." That's an actual quote from Matt Damon talking about shooting in New York City. It just adds so much of a raw realness. And it was actually, it might be one of my favorite parts of the franchise is just the sequences shot in New York, because it feels so raw and gritty. And I think it's aging better to not to spoil our superlative section, but I think it's aging so well to see that, because I understand for these Marvel movies why they shoot in different locations as New York, or shooting sets, because they have so much special effects and all these things. But it just, you can tell when it's not New York, and you can tell when it is in New York. And I think that has stood the test of time. A couple other things that I think, and I don't know if this helps for you, Mike, when you think about this movie, is I felt like there's not a lot of exposition in this movie. The one of the smartest things they do is all the exhibition is done within, I think, 8 minutes, and a lot of it is Pam Landy reporting at Langley. Like, she literally is reporting, and it's summation of the entire franchise, which I think is just so brilliant. And you're like, okay, we know the stakes. We know it's Bourne's after. We know who this new enemy is, and we're just off to the races 10 minutes in. And I think that just makes the movie so strong. Is from the get-go, we're not messing around. There's not too much. We do have some flashbacks, but it's right away we're in it from the get-go.
And she can carry a scene. Like, that sort of scene, she just blows away. Sorry, Mike, to cut you off, but like, she, I will watch Pam Landy debrief something and just be very happy about it. Like, it's fantastic.
We could watch that. That could be hours. I could watch a whole miniseries. Where's my Pam Landy spinoff series?
Yeah, seriously. What does she do after Bourne?
I just need her just in offices. I could just use an office. We're in a prestige spy show kind of peak right now. We're in a special golden era of prestige spy shows. I need my Pam Landy spinoff series. And I think one of the cool things about Pam Landy, obviously, Joan Allen, the actress, is incredible. But the cool thing about this movie and just the entire series is the justification of Pam Landy to be in the movie is not just because she was so great in the second movie and they want to bring her back and she's got this connection to Bourne. And the end of the second movie is actually, it's foreshadowing a scene in the first movie. It's very subtle. I don't know if you guys caught this, is that the justification for Landy being around is to make her the fall guy, essentially. I don't know if you guys caught that. I think that's such a brilliant way to include a great actress, performer, character in a sequel, but totally makes sense in the world of the movie as, oh, they're only keeping her around. They're keeping her in the room, quote unquote, because they're going to pin it on her. I think it's so brilliant. And I never noticed that until rewatching it this time. She got her great scene at the end. It wasn't the action scene, but let me tell you, if you've ever tried to fax something in those office fax machines, I mean, that's harder than it looks. And she got through a lot of documents. I don't know if you guys have had an experience trying to do that.
Under pressure, too. Yeah. She had a serious time constraint, and she pulled it off.
That might be the most unrealistic part of the movie.
It probably was. I was like, dang, that was fast. I mean, just getting the setup and the sequences, it's, I've had times where I've had to just walk away and just have someone help me because it's just so intimidating. So that's what makes Pam Landy.
I also think
true American
one
hero.
of the things about Pam's character that I think I really appreciated, and I think it's not necessarily that it's different from his character, but I like that the enemies that Jason was fighting essentially aren't spies. Like, they're not spies, and that's why he's able to outthink them, or they think differently or whatever. But it would just, I feel, it would have been way too easy to just say, well, Pam Landy or Neil Vorson, like they're just running investigations. Like they're just paper pushers in the CIA office.
Yeah, especially because like they're at a a deep cover place, but they're in Manhattan. It's not they're not even at a station in Europe
Yeah.
or anything. They are. Novosin is the ultimate pencil pusher, especially because he criticizes Pam I think it's in the breakfast scene or right after about essentially being an armchair quarterback, Monday morning quarterback, and he's the ultimate making decisions from a desk chair. Like he is the golden child. He's in a Manhattan office, murdering people from all over the world under the cover of the CIA.
Also, I thought kind of a funny, like looking back, and maybe it was funny then too, I don't know, but like the menu item titled Heart Healthy Omelet, I thought was just really
We'll talk
funny.
about that.
Okay.
I really love that she seems to know Bourne better than everyone else, even though she's actually spent kind of the least amount of time. Because really, this picks up right from the last movie, right? So like, it's not like it's been a ton of time, but the fact that like they pick up on his random Brazilian passport and the rest of the CIA people don't, or the fact that she seems to be the only one who realizes that maybe he's not out just to burn the place down. Yeah, that speaks to her having a better head on her shoulders than the rest of the folks in CIA.
Absolutely. I think is it the first time they meet face to face right at the end where she does more of a jump scare right in front of the hospital. I think that's the first time they meet face to face, right? Yeah. Which is wild over two movies that they had never really met face to face, which I think that makes that moment even more impactful. Okay, before we move into Leasties and Besties, we got to talk about the patron saint of the Bournecast, patron saint character of the Bournecast, which is Nikki Parsons. And we got to check in with her in this third film. Nikki's still rocking the scarf, I have to say. She was posted in Madrid after Berlin, which, I mean, sister, come on, we got to get you out of this business. Like, you're too good for these CIA patriarchal slobs. I mean, they're obviously all terrible at their jobs. You should be running the joint. I mean, this is ridiculous. And when she sees Bourne, she's like, I'm out. Like, I love that about her. She's like, oh, Bourne's here. Like, I'm F this. I'm done with this. Let's tear the system down. And I really like the idea of pairing Nikki and Bourne together, because the last time they saw each other face to face, he terrified her, and like he was essentially threatening to kill her. And it's really cool to see her totally jump. And like you said, Logan, similar to the Marie role in contrast, where she's joining Bourne. I don't know if you guys noticed this. Nikki's file is brought up in the film when they're kind of doing research on her. And I found some information. I paused her. This is how much we love Nikki on this show. I paused and I saw some information. I did the math. She's 28 in the world of this film. So again, if we think about it, 3 years ago, this film, they say 3 years. So she was 25 in the first movie, which really adds to our whole theory that she maybe got her master's degree, but she's this protege. She's incredibly smart, coming out of college, like right into the CAA and Black Ops. She's incredible, but she's 28 in this movie. She does have listed combat sports, karate, kung fu, saber fencing, boxing, and jiu-jitsu. So she knows all those things, and she's weapons trained for multiple different firearms. She was born in New York City, and her status is single. So, she is single. Unfortunately, the political and social affiliations were not shown, and her home address was hidden. But that's some more background on Nikki from that screenshot. I did a deep dive.
Well, it adds to the first movie where, like, Conklin's chewing out Bourne at the end, and he's like, I could have Nikki kill one both. Like, it's like, oh yeah, apparently
she probably could.
Yeah, she could have, based on that thing, right? So, anyway.
Nikki, you're better. You can do better. You can do better.
I actually think I didn't catch any of this, Luke. So thank you for doing the research on this.
Pause. Going back and forth on my Blu-ray with my remote, trying to pause and get the shot. Yeah.
I actually think that this information makes me upset about the Tangier scene, because she looks helpless, but she is trained in karate, kung fu, saber, fencing, boxing, jujitsu, yada yada yada, weapons trained. And it almost would have just made more sense if she was just like just a point person for these agents, just a check-in person. Like she's not actually like a specially trained operative necessarily. And maybe field work, maybe like I don't know, maybe frontline stuff wasn't her thing, and this is her way to stay in the field or whatever. But why does she need Jason to save the day from Dash if she has all
Yeah,
this?
I think there's definitely a little bit of damsel in distress, but she does. I do have to say, in the fight, she does jump on Desh's back, and she does grab his mouth and pull it back like this.
That's
for-
not.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
For-
I mean, how low do you want to set the bar here?
I don't know. It seems
then
like a
he-
smart move.
He elbows her in the face and she's out for the rest of her, right? But I mean, I think the point is like that's just supposed to be a almost Bourne caliber assassin, right? So like even if Nikki's well trained, she's not going to be able to compete with him.
Yeah, she's field trained, but she probably isn't. She's not going to be at that level. I think she does the best she could. She gets rid of the cell phone. She goes to a market, so she does like smart moves. It's not like she's totally incompetent.
I get it.
Yeah, it would. I agree. I would love to see her now that we know she's combat trained. I would love to see a little bit more action there for Nikki to give her justice. But she should be running the joint anyways. So justice for Nikki.
She's just not staffed for this.
She's not staffed. That's true. She wasn't staffed to go off with Bourne either. It's just it's just a struggle that she continues to face. All right, gents, we're done with OTs. Let's move on to Leasties and Besties. All right, one of our favorites of the series is least competent government employee, and we have a lot here. We have the Blackbriar London New York assassin. His name is he's got a fun.
I don't
Paz.
I don't
Edgar
remember.
Ramirez plays Paz.
Okay.
Logan, you brought this one on. I
Yeah,
agree. He does miss
it-
Bourne in his first objective that he's supposed to take out Bourne in the journalist.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe this should go under, the least spy move superlative. But it's like he misses Bourne in London, which obviously I think everyone would have said Bourne was the higher target. And Bourne like chases him up the stairs and, out into the alley. Like he had a chance to
Yeah, he's running from Bourne.
he's running from Bourne at that point. So it's like, okay, that's not great. But then, and the thing that really bothered me on this watch actually was, Bourne gets the NYPD car, which makes for a great chase scene and maybe adds a little bit more realism to the fact that that car can withstand everything because it's like a, police car. But he gets it because this guy shoots at him and misses, in that parking garage. And it's like, you're supposed to be a Blackbriar assassin, man. Like, come on. I don't want you to kill Bourne, but like, you're clearly not that good at your job. So that's why I had him down. He's kind of a disappointment to the team, I think, for Blackbriar.
I agree. I don't think he wants to do it. It's very obvious to me at the end of the movie. He doesn't want to do these things. He doesn't. He deliberately lowers his gun. I think he's out. He's mentally out of the game, I think.
Well, he's out after Bourne doesn't take the shot, right? But this
That's
all
true.
happened before Bourne took the shot. Or didn't take the shot. It's like, anyway.
If we
little
do a
bit of plot
ranking,
armor.
if we do a rankings episode, he's probably the least competent out of all the out of all the Treadstone Blackbriar assassins. He's definitely the worst.
Is that why he's been given London and New York City though? I mean, like, what are the real
I guess,
opportunities to
yeah.
execute in those locations?
I know. No, there's not much. There's not much there. He's just
that's
there.
like honestly like, oh, we have this ambassador candidate, but we're not going to give him anywhere in the Middle East. That's difficult. Let's send him to the UK.
Yeah, exactly. Another one is, I guess it's just Vosen's team that waste Pam Landy to tracing Bourne. Logan, you brought that up.
Yeah. I mean, they come into it's where we get the great line of like, you're 9 hours behind the hardest person you're ever going to track, right? It's
Yeah.
like, you're waiting for Pam to come in. Maybe they're doing this to hang it all on her. Who knows? But like, it just feels ridiculous that they weren't doing something in the meantime. Just, not great for Vosen's reputation, I think.
Yeah, I will also throw out Willis, who's Vosen's number 2, and we'll get into it in least spy moves. But to quote, remember the Titans, attitude reflects leadership, and I think there's some overconfidence in that team with Noah Vosen. I'm going to throw out somebody, and this is I hate to say this because I think he's trying his best. I don't know, guys, if you notice, part of the Vosen's team in New York City is a guy named Jimmy. And let me tell you, Jimmy is constantly ridiculed, specifically by Willis, Vosen's number 2. Here's some of the things that are said to Jimmy. Jimmy, why don't we have that? Jimmy, I need that phone. Jimmy, I need that phone. I need it yesterday. Jimmy, we need the call. Jimmy, get me that conversation. Throughout the first half of the movie, this dude is absolutely raked over the coals.
Do you think this guy's on a PIP? He's on a professional.
He's a temp. I think he's a temp. This poor guy, Jimmy, is just absolutely ridiculed by Willis. I think this is kind of the tier of yelling. I think Vosen yells at Willis and Willis yells at Jimmy. But you know what? Jimmy has a moment in the sun. Jimmy figures out that Bourne's birthday is not what he said when he's talking to Pam Landy. So Jimmy, redemption for Jimmy.
This is the best. I'm so glad you highlighted this. I didn't catch this, but this is undeniably the best part of the movie.
It was my favorite part. I just couldn't believe it. This guy
need a spin-off on Jimmy. I need a spin-off on
Where's
Jimmy.
Jimmy now? I don't know. I mean, he could have, are all
be
those
the
folks in
director of the
prison?
CIA.
I don't know. I think Jimmy's the fall guy. I think Vosen's lawyer went after Jimmy and Willis. I think, but Jimmy, just trying his best. I'd also say Neil Daniels, the station chief in Madrid, is not a great government employee. Which I think that's one thing in the movie that we could have gotten more context is why is he going to the journalist to get, why is he leaking information? Is it out of guilt? We don't get a lot of that background. I would have liked to hear a little bit more about that, but I think maybe there was a deleted scene or something, but it would be fun to hear a little bit more about that. So, all right, least spy move. Here's where sorry, Jimmy and team. I'm going to do a little bit more bashing of Vosen's team in New York City. Here's what they decide to do. Let me just run you through the things they choose to do. They kill a journalist, a Guardian journalist who was investigating the CIA in public at the largest transportation center in England. So they just totally execution, hacking into a newspaper's email server, executing a national security threat in New York City / shoot a kill to order in New York City, and then also shooting at New York City cops. All happened in that New York City sequence. And even though it is a deep cover, they disrupted a working hospital at the end to try to actually get to Bourne. So that's what that team does throughout the movie. Absolute chaos, absolute renegades. It really makes sense that they would get torn down because they had absolutely no care in the world for any damage that they caused. So those are all my least spy moves. Those just horrible decisions, top to bottom.
It bothers me a little bit that the CIA of all places was so easy for Bourne to get into, and I know Bourne is incredible. Bourne's the best, right? But apparently, the scene of him walking into the building is him going through sort of the, the auxiliary hallways, where the extra things that aren't marked. But it's should a CIA building have those? What's going on? And then the guys get locked in their room and have to shoot their way out. It's just not great awareness, even in the CIA building. So Bourne's great, but maybe that shouldn't be so easy.
It shows you that Vosen was totally unhinged and really trying, because he's essentially that we learn is that Bourne is this loose end that could totally derail their entire operation. And yeah, they do have Pam Landy as a backup, but you got to think Vosen, as we know as a character, he is savvy and smart to an extent, and he's got to know that. Yeah, Pam Landy's the fall guy, but she's pretty savvy herself, so you can't totally rely on that. And at that point in the movie, with Bourne being in New York City, I think he puts all of his chips on the table, and hence why there's nobody in the building. I also think Bourne, there's probably some like consulting firm in that building that is just like he snuck into that made it really easy to get up to that floor. Because that's supposed to be
I like that idea.
because that's supposed to be a deep op. It's not like it's not like Mission Impossible where he goes in the Pentagon. It is supposed to be a deep cover. So the cover is the security.
Yeah, fair enough.
But still, they walked into that trap pretty poorly. But you know, Jimmy was trying hard. So besides Jimmy, everybody's safe besides Jimmy. You got to give it up for Jimmy. Shout out to Jimmy. All right, this is least well aged. So these are things that have not aged well. Logan, you said printing out all the Blackfire records and keeping them in the safe.
I mean, just having it all on paper is like, come on, guys. You know, it's what? I don't know if this is supposed to be 2004 still, because it's, you know, right after the other one when, which is what came out in 2004. But even then, like, you know, we've got computers, guys. Like, you can secure stuff and not have to print it all out. So
it's right on the edge, right? I always talk about this franchise. It's right on the edge of smartphones. Blackberries are mentioned a lot here, but it's right on the edge of cloud technology. So it gets a pass for me, but yeah, come on. Let's not print out all the damning records and put them in your office safe. We got to be a little bit better than that. I do have to say, at least well aged. This is peak BlackBerry, as Mike mentioned. Motorola, the Razors. I think Pam had a Razor with a cover. It was like a little leather cover, and I think my mom had that.
Oh, I think I had that leather cover, to be honest, and it brought back such good, you know, comforting memories to see it. Like, that legitimately made me happy. So that's the best age for me, frankly.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's least well aged, but it also, depending on your nostalgia, it is fun to watch. Least well aged, a robust newspaper staff where you can have a security correspondent. Wow, what a different era. We do get the last gasp of an internet cafe, which is one of my favorite tropes in both the Bourne series, and we do see that in the first Mission Impossible. So I think this might be the last internet cafe scene in history where Bourne actually Googles the location of the Madrid safe house.
Well, and I think he's not even using Google, right? It's like some custom search like thing.
No, this one is actually Google.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah, I think in Supremacy it's a different custom search.
Okay.
But this one was actually Google, so we're right at the end.
Yeah, in Supremacy it was Ask Jeeves.
Another technology thing we already mentioned. This is peak fax. I think this is the one of the best fax scenes. I think Clear and Present Danger. I think also I would say if peak fax or copying type of spy thriller stuff, I think Clear and Present Danger, I believe, has a great copying scene. It's more of a printing scene where Jack Ryan's character sneaks into a different office and is printing a document. But besides that, this is pretty good with Pam Landy trying to fax the damning documents for Noah Vosen.
I think, the going back to the documents, okay, that is less, it's less damning to me from an age standpoint that the documents are physical, because but what I found so hilarious was how how obviously they were labeled as top secret.
Yeah,
Like,
top secret. Like Bourne saw it from across
like,
the
at least just like
across the
hide them
building.
inside of like a like Good Housekeeping magazine or something like that.
It's also convenient that they had stamped on them U.S. citizens, so
Right.
you know, like, we're gonna make it even more obvious that what we did was super not okay.
All right, on to least important character. Not many in this movie. Logan, you said Vosen's second in command, which I think is like he is like not really necessary.
I guess he called out Jimmy a lot, which I didn't catch. So maybe in that sense, he's super important. I thought he looked too much like Landy's. So there were moments where it's like, who is,
Right.
who are you second in command to? So
I agree. They do
wondered
look almost exactly alike. There's a subtlety in their performances, but they could have really changed it. They could have had someone look a little bit different, not like a very middle-aged man office type. I agree. And then least important scene, unless you guys have another character. I don't know. It's such a tight movie. There's really no fat to trim. Watching this consecutively, the flashback stuff kind of feels unnecessary, especially if you've listened. If you're a listener or viewer and you've been watching these movies, like we've been rewatching them, you're like, okay, yeah, I just watched that a month ago, or I recently watched that. But from a theater standpoint, it makes sense, right? It was a 3-year gap, so it's helpful for an audience. The only scene that I think you could cut from this is Bourne confronting Marie's brother, where we get the Daniel Bruhl Easter egg. Probably the only one that I think you could really cut, but it does show that idea that you mentioned, Logan, where in this film he's really focused on redemption. He's trying not to kill people. He's trying to make, and it kind of closes the door on Marie.
Yeah.
So
Is that supposed to be the same brother we meet in the first movie, or did Marie have another brother we hadn't met yet?
I think it's supposed to be the same. I'd have to double check the character names on IMDb. I believe it's just a recast. I think it's a straight recast.
Not instead of a least important scene, the scene I had a scene I missed the most from this movie, and this goes back to after watching the other two. Because for me, a lot of the Bourne thing is like discovering with him how capable he is, and everyone around him not realizing how capable he is. But for this movie, like everyone knows who Bourne is. I mean, the whole thing is that like he's becoming uncovered. So my favorite scene in the first movie is him on the park bench, where the two police officers come up to him and like put the baton in his arm, and he knocks him out in like 5 seconds, right? And then you get the one in the consulate where the guy's trying to put handcuffs on him, and he's again, it's like they're 10-second scenes, but they're just amazing. The second one, we got the Naples guy, the guy with talks big, and then it's like 2 blows and they're on the ground. And we don't have anything quite like so swift and overwhelming in this. At least that's what I felt watching it, because everyone kind of knows how dangerous Bourne is at this point. There's no sort of like
surprise
scene like that. So, it's not a least important scene, but it's a scene I missed the most, I guess, from this. Is like we didn't quite have that sort of element of surprise, or just quick moment of seeing just how incredible Bourne is. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think the closest would be in the cold open when he's in Russia with those police officers. But yeah, we're definitely missing that idea that where he's discovering his skills or rediscovering, because this is right after the last movie. Even in the second movie, we have this gap where he's been with Marie, they've been traveling, he's been running on the beach with cargo shorts, but so he hasn't been fighting people, and he's getting back into it. Yeah, we definitely missed that. I think that maybe takes it away from me. All right, let's move on to besties. Okay, best government employee. Pam Landy obviously is up there. I would say I really love Pam's second in command. I know he's kind of a doppelganger for Bosun's second in command. His name's Tom Cronin, but he does find out that Bourne is alive because of the passport. So he has he has his big shiny moment. So I got to shout out him. Any other government employees that you think should be shouted out in this one that we haven't already covered in previous episodes?
Maybe Jimmy?
I think so. I think
he's
we're
just
talking
not
ourselves
for this.
They're asking so much of him in such a crazy amount of time.
He's just not staffed.
Shout out to Jimmy. Let's move him into best government employee.
Okay.
The amount of abuse he gets, goodness gracious. I'm going to advocate in his review. He should be
submit some written feedback.
Yeah, anonymous feedback. The anonymous form. I'm gonna nominate him as best government employee. All right, friends. Best spy move, aka savviest spy move. Thanks to Andy Warson for that secondary title. We've got a lot. I'm gonna organize this based off of scenes. So we have Waterloo. Having Ross stand by the guy in the hoodie at Waterloo Station and tie a shoe. That's one that I really like, where he stands by the guy that has a sweatshirt hoodie, and so the team thinks that is the contact and tackles them. Him tying his shoe. Bourne does a great job, I think. Obviously, Ross is his actions by not listening to Bourne are really the only reason why this whole operation doesn't work. Which is pretty tragic.
Marie got a lot of flack from you guys in the previous two Bournecast. I'm,
Not me, not me,
a little,
not me.
a little.
It's all
Yes,
about-
Well, I guess
yes, you
I guess we're looking
too.
at my.
Don't hide from this.
But I'll tell you what, she followed instructions a lot better than Simon Ross did. So like she realized how good Bourne was, and she did it. So just a little bit of support from Marie.
That's
coming
true.
From
I
this side.
like that, Logan. Thank you, Logan.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
She just followed the directions. That's all you have to do. Just follow Bourne's directions. At the Waterloo station, I do have to say, even though he's maybe not the best of all the asset agents, the enemy agents, I do think the sniping from the changing billboard is a smart tactic. I think that's pretty smart from a spy standpoint.
I think he's just conveniently like lucky because like how can he predict like when that guy's gonna run out of that door? It just so happens to be while
That's
the
true.
billboard is open. So honestly, if you think about it, he's just an idiot savant.
I think he just doesn't want to do his job. I think he's protesting, subtly protesting. He's trying to make it. I mean, he's no Dash. I mean, Dash is an up and comer. He's
That's why
trying
Dash
to get
is in
promoted.
Tangier and this guy's in London, right?
That's true. That's true. Another one that I really liked. I guess this isn't his best spy move. This is more about the direction of the film and why I love this franchise. In the hallway, when Bourne's fighting off all the agents to save Ross, one of the agents gets thrown on the stairs, and you see him. And this is a great stunt performance. You see him grunt, like he grabs it, like his back, and he's like, "Ugh." He's not like knocked out cold, and you see him try to get back up, and that's when Bourne pistol whips him. And it's a really subtle, but rewatching it, I was like, that's accurate. You're not just down. Yeah, that would hurt if you're thrown on the stairs, but you would react, and if you're a professional spy, you're gonna try to get back up. But Bourne pistol whips him to really put him down. I think it's just a subtle thing that I noticed.
I also like that Waterloo when you've got the guy trailing Ross into the store, and Bourne grabs him, uses the own needle on him and sits him down on the bench to make it look like he's just falling asleep on a bench. I was like, that's just Bourne's good.
So smooth.
I think this was the most spy-y movie of all three of them. Like the others were not very. This is more James Bond than Jason Bourne.
Yeah, I think so. I could see that. Yeah, this here's a good analogy. You could have put Daniel Craig in some of these action scenes, and it would have felt like the modern Bond movie.
I guess that's that's the point.
Which makes sense because the Craig Bonds were very much trying to take the formula from the Bourne movies and adapt it to that series. So I think that's a good analogy. All right, Madrid. Logan, you mentioned this one. Bourne calling the police in Madrid and shouting, "I hear gunfire. I think they're Americans." That's
and
great.
then throws a phone across the room. Loved it.
That's a fun one. The fan making it look like someone's moving behind the door. I haven't tested this one out, but I might have to test this one out in my apartment and see if it actually works. And then I don't know if this is the best spy move, but the GoPro handguns. I think that was pretty innovative to add the camera on the handgun. I think I didn't with the actual like pull out screen. I thought that was pretty innovative. So I haven't seen that in other action movies. I like that. And then Tangier, we have more. Again, this is very much Bourne. We have the laundry as gloves when Bourne is jumping the roofs to protect himself from the glass. Dash, shout out to Dash, drops off the bag to trick Bourne. One of the few times where Bourne is totally tricked by another agent. I love that scene. So basically, Bourne is following Dash. Dash drops off a bag. Bourne thinks that's the bomb, but really the bomb is attached to the bike. It's a great little move by Dash.
It's good. I like it because Bourne can't win every one of them.
No. And Dash is
It actually sets up for that fight scene being so epic because you get this impression of Dash like, oh, he's playing for keeps. He plays for keeps more than Bourne's other enemies.
Yes. Another one in Morocco, spray can in the grill, which I really like to set up a incendiary within the market as a distraction. And he actually saves the guy. I don't know if you noticed that, is when he throws it in there, the cook, he actually grabs him and drags him away from the explosion. So again, going back to Logan's theory that this is in this installment, Bourne is really trying to save lives and not take lives. Yeah. And then, of course, the book attack, which again we've seen. Bourne is a lover of physical media, and he uses physical media to its best advantage, and using a book to attack the throat of Dash, and then later on using the towel to strangle him. That's just a classic Bourne trope of using what's in the room. So I really appreciate it. I've talked to friends about like what kind of prop you would like to have from a movie. I always say the Horn of Gondor is probably would be one I would love to hang out in my room. From this franchise, I would love to have that book. If you watch the behind the scenes, they have a prop book. So when they were actually doing, the two actors were doing that, the book is essentially made out of rubber. So Matt Damon can actually put it against the actor's throat and hit it, and it's just essentially just soft. But I would love to have that book. That'd be a nice prop. I don't know if there was anything from this franchise that you guys would love to have as a prop.
I think a Motorola Razor.
I think we can make that happen. There's got to be one on eBay. Or I think just any of the files, right? I think any of the files would be great to have as a movie prop. So that I have to keep my eye out for that.
Bourne sweater collection, you guys mentioned this early on, but I'd take one of those too.
Man, yeah, those cable knit sweaters are good. That's not just like hanging the Horn of Gondor in the background of your Zoom. It's that's one you could wear. You could be at a party and be like, ever seen the Bourne Identity? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. $31.87 on eBay
for a razor. Yeah. What about a razor with a leather cover like Pam Landy? Give me the Pam Landy razor.
I'm gonna need some more time
cushion.
on that.
All right, on to best aging things besides Motorola razors. Logan, you said the general social commentary on government overreach and privacy of citizens.
It feels very much like they were sending a message about with the list, even just the listening in on the phone call at the start, or obviously they weren't subtle about the whole killing of American citizens sort of thing. But privacy is still a thing we have to think about. So that's yeah.
It's got even more prevalent now. I mean, it's even more of a problem now. Maybe it's not at this kind of like dramatic security level, and it's not as sexy, but it's more about your email data getting hacked, or but maybe the government is doing that. Maybe you're a journalist at The Guardian. I think that, and we've talked about it in this series, especially it coming out in the early 2000s. We think about the Patriot Act. We think about the Bush era, and I'm not trying to get political on the show, but very much of the time. If you weren't watching The Daily Show every week or watching political news or reading the news during this period, this was what the conversation was about. It was about our interaction with other countries, how we're making military actions in other countries, privacy, security threats, how much government control it has over security and providing security, not just in airports, but just what does the government have authority on to search and secure to keep the country safe. And I think, obviously, this is an example of Vosen just like, oh, we're in a national security threat in New York City. We're locking down entire New York City. We're doing shoot to kill of a U.S. like an actual U.S. citizen asset in New York City. Pretty extreme version of that, but it was a conversation in the Times.
Yeah.
Best aging things, Vosen's breakfast order, as Mike mentioned, heart healthy omelet with goat cheese and peppers. Great order. Vosen's keeping it lean. He's got to stay healthy.
I don't think it would be called the heart healthy omelet today.
That's true. That way would not be called that. It would probably
the name
just be
has aged.
Yeah. But the order, I like the order. Next time I'm at a restaurant, listeners, next time I'm at a breakfast restaurant, I'm gonna do that exact order and see what I get back. And I was like, give me the Noah Vosen.
Noah Vosen. If Luke owns a diner, he'll have a menu item called the Noah Vosen. Wait, Luke, actually, I want you to...
Pam Landy's just going to be black coffee and milk.
As a creative exercise, I want you to create a restaurant menu based on orders just in movies.
Okay.
And like then it could be like a breakfast.
Well, you have
order could be the
I know you
Novosa.
have the Royale with cheese from Pulp Fiction. That's the easy one. But it has to be. So does it have to be actual orders in the movie at a restaurant?
Yeah, kind of. Or it could be like a character is known for eating something, so you would
Okay.
have
Yeah.
like you would have as a drink, you would have the James Bond, which is dry martini, shaken not stirred.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's gonna be a very eclectic menu. I feel like
It is.
It's gonna be a tough operationally for the restaurant. It's the ordering. It's gonna be really tough. Like we have to do an omelet, and then we have to do a Royale with cheese and a martini. It's just gonna be all over the place. But it's just an exercise. I'll report back later. This is a good winter activity for me to do. These are the things that I want to spend time on. If you watched our Q&A episode this past summer, Ask Me Anything episode, where I think I spent maybe 3 hours creating my dream starting 11 soccer lineup based on fictional characters from the rewatch series that we've done. This is right in line with that. All right, back on track. Best line. So many good lines in this movie. Logan, you listed a bunch. So born in horrible Russian. My argument is not with you. Can you give us a little context on the horrible Russian?
So, what am I supposed to say? Logan's partner? Is that the trend
that's
here?
a little bit of
Okay.
the inside joke. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Well, my wife, has taught first year Russian at a university level, and when that line happened, she went back to listen to it again, and then listen to it a third time, just be like, what is he actually saying in Russian? And the conclusion was that her first year Russian students have a better accent than Jason Bourne did. Now he was suffering because he had been shot in the shoulder.
Yes.
Yeah, he had just poured out his heart to this poor Russian, the Nevsky girl. But it's like still not. I wasn't impressed, but it's a great line. I mean, you see the terror on the Russian guy's eyes of like, this guy's clearly way above my skill level. He's got a gun, and Bourne just goes, my argument's not with you, and walks away.
Did she say if that actual translation is accurate from a caption standpoint?
To be honest, she couldn't decipher what he was actually saying in Russian. She caught the form of like you. She caught the you part, but like the rest of it, it was shaky enough that So anyway,
this is the expertise we brought Logan on. So this is the quality of expertise that is elevating this episode. So thank you, Logan, for the context there. You also listed a bunch of other ones that I'd love to. Nikki DeBourne, it was difficult for me with you. We'll talk about it in best scenes. Great line. Born to Nikki as she boards the bus. It gets easier. Again, less is more. Less is more. That's what this movie and the entire franchise is all about, at least the first 3 movies. Where does it end? It ends when we've won. That line, I think, is the most, not political, but it definitely is a nod to the George Bush victory kind of idea of like the Iraq war. It ends when we've won. Like it's a little bit of that idea that he's using the justification of quote unquote winning, but Pam saying like you don't have winning is not a thing when you go down the line of just murdering people.
Yeah, and that's specifically after he says, put a kill order on Nikki. And she's like, Nikki's one of us. Like, if you go down this path, where does it end? And, it just shows he's, as you said, he's going off the rails at that point. Yeah. Like, he's lost control because he's so worried about Blackbriar being exposed.
Yeah, definitely a mission accomplished George Bush moment there. Pam DeVosin, you better get a good lawyer right after she does the facts. I mean, that is such a good line. That is just the ultimate mic drop, which I'm so glad she gets. And then Bourne DeVosin, if you were in your office, we'd be having this conversation face to face. Oh, so good. It's that drop the mic moment that we love in this series. And I was thinking about this. This is Bourne messing with Vosin. Like this is not strategic at all. This is just an ultimate FU to Vosin.
Because he doesn't need them to rush back, right? Like if anything, he could use the extra time.
Yeah, I know, because he's literally in their office. Jimmy's right down the hall. I mean, come on.
Jimmy.
Yeah. Another Novosin line that I really like that I think helps you really understand his mentality right at the start is Ross is easy. We want the source.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's so great. The writing of this movie is so great in the performances because we understand his character immediately within a couple of lines and images. It's like, oh, Ross is easy. Like he's not a problem. I'm not worried about it. I want to get the source. Then his famous line when he finally sees Jason Bourne, Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne. Which I don't know if you guys know this. This is a TikTok audio trend. So my wife showed me, Luke's partner showed me a TikTok where they use this audio bite comically, obviously. So be on the lookout for that. Bourne says to Ross, this isn't some story in a newspaper. This is real. That's a great line. Landy, when she jumps in, you're 9 hours behind the toughest target you'll ever face. She just gets her moment to just show everybody that they have no idea what they're doing. They're trying to take out the best target they've ever tried to even track. Bourne coded in, we need to be dead. He says that right after he kills Dash to Nikki. I think that's a really subtle acting moment. And you could say Matt Damon doesn't get a ton of work sometimes in these movies to act, but it's a subtle, it's not Good Will Hunting level of acting, but it's the kind of the premier, most brutal murder of the film where he kills Dash and you can see the intensity. Nikki looks at him and then he locks in and it says, coded in, we need to be dead, to Nikki to code in that quote unquote Dash has got the targets.
We do see the moments where he's wrestling, right, with everything going on, but when he's in the zone, like he is there, right, and nothing pulls him out of it and nothing distracts him from it. So, before he gets to the whole wrestling with, like, I've seen every the face of everyone I've ever killed, like he still accomplishes the end of the task at hand, which is like, hey, we need to be dead.
Again, it's more subtle acting with Damon because this is an action series and it's definitely more about the physicality and the stunts that he does. But the Bourne Zone, when you can see it in his body and his tension, it's subtle, but it really adds to the performance. Another one that I really like that I think is a little bit more dramatic is that he reveals to Nikki is, I can see their faces, everyone I ever killed. I just don't know their names. And he talks about how Marie try to help him remember the names. All goes back to that. And it's intercut with Pam going through his file where we see the faces as an audience. I think it's a really delicate scene. It's one of the more emotional scenes in a very fast-paced action movie that I appreciate. A couple more fun ones. Sir, he drove off the roof. I think that's one of the more comedic moments where the agent says that. And then we have kind of more at the end finale here of the entire trilogy. This is where it started for me. This is where it ends. We have Pam Landy give that last plea to Bourne to come in and say, because she says earlier when they're on the phone, she says, let's come in, let's figure it out. Now that might have been more of a play. But this one, she more sincerely is like, hey, we have the files. Let's go to the press. Let's do this together. And he said, this is where it started. This is where it ends. And then one of my favorites where he doesn't kill Albert Finney's character. You don't deserve the star they'd give you at Langley. Oh, the ultimate, just cut deep. He's like, he wants to see them strung out to dry publicly. Yeah. I love that. And then call back to the first film. Look at what they make you give. Heartbreaker. Just a heartbreaker. The Clive Owen character says that to Jason
Professor
Bourne in the first film. I think it's like this movie out of all trilogies, I think outside of, I don't know, outside you guys could argue, I'm open for debate, but I think about Return of the King, I think about Return of the Jedi.
Where the hell are you going with this?
Ultimatum, I think, is one of the best like third installments of a trilogy. It's so good.
Do you put like Godfather Part 3 up there?
No, I mean, I don't think so. No offense to Godfather Part 3. I mean, Ocean's 13 I really love, but I understand like that's not.
You have a personal bias.
That's a personal bias, but I think from a just a objective technical standpoint, this film wraps up everything, but doesn't give you over the top exposition or stuff you don't need. It's tight and lean, and it's accurate to the entire series. And it's rewarding to the fans, but not in your face type of pandering to the audience. Last Crusade's pretty good in Indiana Jones, but
it's hard for me though, Luke, because I understand the context you're giving. The context is third installment in a trilogy. The problem is that's such a there aren't a lot of movies that would even be considered to be talked about as like good installments in that. And then the ones that you're throwing out are like quite literally, in my opinion, like top 20 movies of all time.
Yeah.
So it's like it's hard to say that this fits in that category, but I understand like if you just present the context like, okay, it's a third installment of a franchise. Most of the time when we get this far, we actually just get the Bourne Legacy, you know.
Right.
We don't get the Bourne Ultimatum. So I get it, but also like that's tough.
Yeah.
I think it's great because the story is like worth telling. Like it wraps it up really well, but it's also like an interesting story on its own. You know, I don't feel like they made another movie because they just wanted to capitalize on the movie. It's like there was a bit of Bourne's story that still could be wrapped up. You know, he wanted to shut down Treadstone in the first movie. It doesn't, you know, Treadstone shuts down itself, but Blackbriar's taking its place, and he actually does by the end of this shut it down, right? I think that's a problem with the fifth one, you know, where Jason Bourne comes back, like Matt Damon comes back as Bourne again, and it's like, but what, you know, after all this time, I was so excited for it because I love these movies, but the story is just not really, you know, there's no real why. So I think that's what I love about this movie is how it wraps everything up so well. It leaves you wanting more because it's just a great film, but like there isn't actually that much that they've left unwrapped.
Yeah, it's a struggle, and that's why, Logan, we were texting about this, is that I never saw the fifth one for that very reason. Like, I boycotted it because I just was like, this is a perfect trilogy. Legacy is legacy. Like, that to me, that's just not even, if you take Bourne off the title, it's just a good spy action movie, which I'm excited to talk about in our next episode. But that these three movies contain, they're so good. I can't even think about anything outside of these three movies.
Yeah.
So
have you watched it yet, Luke, since we last texted?
No,
probably not.
No. Yeah. So it's going to be a real time. My first watch, Mike's first watch. So I'm excited now. I'm more open to it. I think when it first came out, I don't know why I was in more of a, I guess, a hipster, you know, rebellious phase, but I'm more open to now because I've watched 5 Pirates of the Caribbean movies in a row.
I'll rewatch it with you in solidarity.
Okay, thank you.
See if my opinion has changed.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But again, it's this movie, especially with Look at What They Make You Give, I think is thematically the characters, it all is wrapped up perfectly. And then you know, the final shot, which we'll talk about. Best performance, I feel because we have kind of repeat characters. I think Albert Finney as Dr. Albert Hirsch is probably the best performance in this film for me, and Logan, you said that as well. Yeah. I'm always going to throw out Julia Stiles because she's great, and I think when we talk about best scenes, she has a great scene. She could have there always could be more Julia Stiles in my life, of course, but I think someone with the gravitas as Albert Finney as an actor in cinema history, with his voice, with it, just his demeanor, you have to have someone like that who is the origin of Bourne, who can go toe to toe with Bourne intellectually. I think it's not a lot of airtime. It's not a lot of scene time, but it packs a punch. And his voice, I mean, just
perfect. Yeah, just perfect.
It's ominous. It's scary. It's threatening. It's calm all at the same time. It's so good.
You learn everything you need to know about his character just the first time he speaks.
Yeah. I love when Vosen's like, do you have time to get out of there? And he's like, no. He's coming home. Like, there's just kind of this, like, he's in control, even in an intense situation where Vosen's freaking out. He's not worried at all.
Actually, that it could have been his voice that made Mike fall asleep, right?
That's true. That's probably what it is. I mean, they talk about ASMR. Oh, yeah. I could listen to that voice all day long. All right, on to best shot, wrapping up here with our Leasties and Besties. The Noah Vosen entrance in New York City when he gets out of the private car, I think this maybe, I don't know if you guys caught this, but I just love him coming out of the car. You know exactly who he is right when he gets out of the car in New York City. Just like his suit, his demeanor, he's just intense and ready to go. Like we know this guy is going to be a force that Jason Bourne's going to attack. There is a moment in the Tangier scene where it's quiet. And again, this franchise, they're so good for the chaotic nature of the editing, the action. When they need to help you understand where everybody is with the geography, there's a moment where it's very quiet and we see Nikki, Bourne, and Desh all kind of in this trapeze of this tight city center. It's this quiet moment where Nikki jumps on the roof and Bourne hears it, Desh hears it, and then we start moving again and there's a music beat. I just love that shot. It was one that I noticed on the rewatch. That was another technical part of this movie that just stands out to me. The window jump, it's in the trailer. I remember it in the trailer, like seeing it for the first time and just being so pumped, and it's still so good. There's walking in New York when he's walking into the building before he calls Pam Landy. That was also in the trailer. It's one of those few stable shots of Bourne walking in the shadows that I love. Pam in the park in the snow again. I mean, we're recording this now in January in northern climates. I mean, just there's something about it. There's no fake snow there. It's just Pam Landy in the park, all bundled up. And then all the shots of Bourne in New York City, I absolutely love, especially that when they show him at the East 71st Street. I think that's such a nice shot of Bourne. There's one with him actually crossing in New York Street, and it's I don't know. Maybe I'm sentimental, but I think that's impressive just to see that in a modern movie now where it's not a set in LA or shot in Scotland or wherever they're doing a fake New York. It's like, oh, there's Matt Damon in New York walking, which if you watch the behind the scenes, there is they show Matt Damon about to do one of those shots and he is holding a Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup. So that's just it's a little nod for Dunkin's fans out there. Nikki's smile plus the water shot at the end, of course, is great. And then we mentioned Pam coming around the corner. Those are other great shots that I love. I don't know if I missed anybody.
No, the Nikki smile one where she sees the news in the corner. That has like shades of the end of like The Dark Knight Rises where they're just sitting in a cafe somewhere.
That's
like,
right.
That's
happy.
Right. And it's like, that reminds me of that. I don't know what year relatively they came out, but it had that sort of feeling to me.
Yeah, this would have been before. So, but I don't know. We need to make this a meme, I guess, because that one is actually a meme. The one from Dark Knight Rises is actually a meme. So maybe we need to make the Nikki smiling a meme. But I'm just so happy for Nikki. She's obviously happy. She's on the run, but she knows Bourne made it.
She's bounced back, it seems.
She is. She's at a cafe again. Just get her in cafes. Nikki is best in cafes. All right, on to best scene to wrap it up for our besties. We've got the Waterloo scene. We talked a lot about it. When I was rewatching this, I don't know if you're a fan of Top Gear, Logan, but Mike, I kind of felt like this was could have been a Top Gear challenge between like the different the different transportation scenes and the chaotic like cutting. I felt like this was a Top Gear edit. It felt like of the era. We have Pam and Noah's breakfast, which I really loved rewatching this. Because it was very much in contrast to Pam and Abbott. The Pam and Abbott scenes, they're in an interrogation room in Langley. They're in Berlin at the safe houses. This is very much a metropolitan. It's a public space, and it's definitely shows a different type of combat between the two, where Vosen is not someone who is boots on the ground. He is very much high level pencil pusher, having this fancy breakfast, this heart healthy omelet.
I love that he offered to pay for her. And it's like, come on, we all know you're charging that on
that's on the company
dime.
card, aka the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pam, for saving the taxpayer of the $7.99 for not ordering a heart healthy omelet. Yeah. Another reason why Pam Landy is an American hero. Also, one of my favorite scenes is Pam went right after that is Pam when she enters the room. the control room and just starts ordering them around. That's a great sequence. We've got the market chase in Tangier, of course. That's the kind of the second half. I know that's kind of all one big scene, it feels like. But when they're in the market, Bourne's trying to follow Nikki, who's also being followed by Dash, and that whole interplay, I think, is, again, so chaotic and crazy to just see that. And it feels like you're actually there because they're filming with real people that we've learned in today's episode. Logan, you said the symmetry between Bourne Marie and Bourne Nikki. I call that like the cleanup scene when they're cleaning their injuries. I love that scene as well. That one stood out to me.
It's just, it's a callback in a lot of ways. You've got Nikki changing her hair, doing all these things that Marie did, but there's just no intimacy between Nikki and Bourne, right? So it's just similar but different. I liked it.
I loved it this time, just seeing it and understanding that a little bit more with the contrast. I think it definitely helps when you've watched the movies back to back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really wanted some sexiness, though. I could have used a little bit more sexiness. But, I really wanted. I guess I'm getting older now and I'm getting more sentimental, but I really wanted Bourne and Nikki to go off into the sunset together. I'm glad that's not in the movie, but in my heart, like deep in my heart, I have to admit, I was like, they're both trained. Nikki understands his lifestyle better. She's really smart, but I understand why that didn't happen, but I kind of wanted it to. I understand, though. Maybe one day. We also have a great scene is Bourne talking to Novos and on the phone / breaking into the CIA super easily. Just that whole sequence of getting everybody out on the streets in New York, and Bourne is just playing them like a fiddle. We have the car chase, which is driving off the roof. The police car rail grind, which is a great stunt. If you want to watch the behind the scenes where they actually like launch that car, they had a device, of course, that was connected to the car, so it was on a track. But they really did launch that car, and they had it hit. They had the stunt driver hit it right at the right time. Awesome stunt. And then the Hirsch face-off at the end, which is, I think for me, that when I think about this movie, outside of the Waterloo station, that last sequence is so intense and very different than the other sequences in the series. And the music is a little bit different. I don't know if you guys caught that, where Bourne is, it's just got like this guttural deep beat that's a little bit different, and it's just heartbreaking where Bourne really figured, like, he remembers everything. I don't know, what did you guys feel about that, rewatching that last scene? I think watching it as like an older person, I'm not old, but I'm older than I first watched it, it's more heart-wrenching to see David Webb becoming Bourne through an execution, essentially.
There's a sort of ambiguity as to whether Bourne was really willing to do it or not. Like, was he effectively, there shows scenes like him being waterboarded and, like Searly's being influenced to take that step. So it's like, it's almost sort of taking some of the moral responsibility off Bourne for everything he's done, because they've sort of forced him into it through this experimental training. But also, like, he's still got the moral responsibility. He's still feeling all the weight of it on his conscience. But I think this time I noticed more than in past times that, like, maybe he wasn't fully choosing this on his own, So yeah, it's just kind of sad to like think through him taking that first step to do that assassination and everything that's followed. And then, like, he, in the best case, he thought he was doing it because he was going to save American lives, as, Hirsch says over and over again. But then we know from the Supremacy that, like, his first assignment was not even for, that goal. It was just being, Abbott and Conklin's sort of personal assassin in that sense. So you get, like, yeah, there's some sadness in this series when you take a step back.
Right. I agree. And especially like that scene, we understand it in the flashbacks and Supremacy, but seeing it, that's why I love that scene so much. It's so raw. You can feel, I don't know, just the way they edited it. And there's almost, it's kind of like the dream state, but there's this fuzz around the film and how you see it as an audience member. But that's where I don't know. it's hard to say because there's so many action movies and action quote unquote stars, and I don't really think of Matt Damon as an action star. And I think I don't know. This is my hot take for the franchise. I think Matt Damon is underrated in his acting in this franchise, and specifically this movie. I think he's very much underrated. I think he has powerful performances that are subtle, that give so much more depth to the character, and why we're still talking about these movies years later. I don't know. Hot take alert. Mike, what about you? You're more objective than I am.
I think I was in and out on this scene.
Oh
but
yeah,
I
sorry.
remember,
You fell asleep at this scene, so I was crying and Mike was sleeping.
But I remember thinking, we don't, and you mentioned this at kind of at the beginning of the podcast. We don't really get a lot of what happens before this. Like, what are the decisions in Jason Bourne's life that lead him to this room? And I think that and Logan bring up a good point. Like, how much choice does he really have in this? He may feel like he may be in a point of desperation, and therefore he feels like he has no choice, or maybe he just has a supreme sense of duty and belief that operating for the American government is for the greater good. But he's still wrestling with that. I think a great line that you didn't put, I think it may be the most poignant line for me, is when Bourne says, "What did he do?" And Hirsch responds by saying, doesn't matter, I don't know. That I think was the moral crux for David Webb at that point. And it is still like, it's basically the haunting reality that Jason Bourne lives with.
Right. And it breaks through the amnesia. It breaks through all of that. Like David Webb was wrestling with that. And so is Jason Bourne after amnesia, still wrestling with it in a big way. And I think that's the power of these movies, where I think this is the best iteration of an adaptation, where it pulls in the spirit of the book, but is using the medium to express it in, I think, a better way. Because in the books, you get a lot more of the background, especially in the first book. You get a lot more of the pre-Jason Bourne context, where in this movie, as an audience member, we don't really know. We know as much as Jason does, and we're learning as much as Jason does. So we get to be, quote unquote, in the room with him, making the moral decision and understanding the moral quandaries that he's facing. And I think the power of these adaptations from books is that it suits the film medium, because they're expressed in a tighter way. It feels first person, and it's succinct and clear that way. So I think that's a great point, Mike, where you bring that up, and that's why this scene's so powerful, right? That's why this scene, again, it wraps up the whole franchise, but also stands out Ultimatum versus the other films for me in a very strong way. It's really hard. We're about to move on to rankings, and it's just like I'm struggling. I have to re-rank all of them. It's tough. All right, should we move on to ratings? This is going to be hard. So we do out of 5 Treadstones, Logan. So out of 5 Treadstones, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. Maybe it's 5 Blackbriars today, or Blackberries, or Razors, but we'll do Treadstones. So Logan, out of 5 Treadstones, what would you give the Bourne Ultimatum?
For me, it's a 5. The only reason it wouldn't be a 5 for me is that I think they went a little excessive on the car chase scene, to the point of like him driving off the roof and then getting out, and then the major crash, which is an amazing stunt, but it's like a huge crash, and he walks away from that too. It's like they've won up the supremacy a little bit, which almost makes me want to drop it. But I love this movie. Like, it's incredible. So for me, it's a 5 Treadstone. All of them, frankly, are 5 Treadstones for me. So I'm not sure I'm the most unbiased person, but 5 Treadstones for the original 3.
Oh, for context, listeners, Identity, we had a 3.5 Treadstones for Mike, and then a 4 for me, which I don't know. I might bump that up to a 4.5. I was trying to give myself space. Supremacy, again, 3.5 from Mike. It was a 5 for both myself and our guest Jim. We have a 5 for Logan for Ultimatum. Mike, what is your rating out of 5 Treadstones?
Well, so I'm trying. So I feel like let me filibuster more.
Okay.
But the thing is, on Letterboxd, I'm very critical with ratings. So like pretty much everything is a full star.
Lower average.
Lower on Letterboxd.
Yeah, but you don't have to use the Letterboxd one as separate. That's separate. So just in the context.
Treadstones are very different than stars.
They're very different. They're very different.
Yeah,
I agree, Mike. I understand the quandary that
they're
you
almost
have.
magical in a way.
Yeah, they are. They are. They're magical stones.
So I think then if I have to rate it on Treadstones, it's 4.5 Treadstones.
Okay. Wow. That's Mike's highest rating of the franchise. I'm gonna do 4.5 as well. They're all 5s to me. I agree with Logan. I'm gonna say this just for the listener, just for contrarian, because I love this movie, but you can listen to Supremacy. I'm not gonna rehash my thoughts on Supremacy. Supremacy still is my favorite. It just, there's something about that movie. I can't really explain it. I just can't. I love Ultimatum though. I really do. I think it's I guess if here's how I would describe it. If all 3 of these movies are on TNT on a Sunday afternoon, I'm going to watch Supremacy every time all the way through. Whereas I think Ultimatum is the context that we're watching it is the best context to watch it. I think when you watch all these 3 movies in a row, Ultimatum is so strong because you're building up to it. I think on its own on an island without a lot of context, it's maybe not as strong as Supremacy for me, but it's I am really splitting hairs at this point. This is pound for pound. This for us as all the franchises we've covered, it's pretty. This is right now the best. Mission Impossible is pretty strong. They have more movies, but we'll see once we get into the next 2 how it matches up. But for the first 3 movies, this is the strongest we've out of anything we've covered. I mean, it is pound for pound 3 incredible epic action movies that I still think they're the best action movies of all time. And this trilogy stands alone as one of the best trilogies of all time. Logan, thank you for joining us. Thank you for bringing your expertise, your joy and wisdom to the pod. Any last words about Bourne Ultimatum and the Bourne franchise to share with our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, it's been an honor, Luke. Appreciate it. I would say just, come full circle with what you're saying. I would put this second. I would go Identity, Ultimatum, Supremacy in my personal list. And I'm very, very excited to hear what you guys have to say about Legacy and Jason Bourne. So I will certainly be tuning in to hear your analysis there. And maybe they're better than I remember. Who knows? But these 3, it's just like you can't get better than that for an action movie.
It's a photo finish between the 3, right? I could change my rankings based on every day when I watch them. And probably the real truth is the one that I watched the most recently, I will probably rank as the best. And that's the mark of a great trilogy. Mike, your thoughts as we wrap up the Bourne Ultimatum, we wrap up the original trilogy of this great franchise.
Yeah, I think that this movie has given me warm and fuzzy feelings about the other 2, like the previous 2 that we watched. I enjoyed those 2. They were entertaining, but I think because I don't have the nostalgia that you or Jim or Logan has with it, it's never going to rise it's not going to rise very far for me. But this one, I think was great. Regardless, I give it a 4 on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
So that's actually a very, very high rating.
It is. And we're excited, friends, to jump into, to use that energy that Mike has, that positivity that is coming from Bourne Ultimatum, to go to these next 2 films. The next one we have is a Legacy sequel, and you know that because it's called The Bourne legacy. Until next time, friends, this has been the Bournecast.